It's laundry day. You know what that means? It means it's time to use our dirty laundry. The 14 HP dual destructive harmonics generator, gated pulsarizer, crossfader, Buchla style wavefolder, sub-generator, and VCA by After Later Audio. This module has two sides, the press and the fold side. The press side is a unique semi-wave folded, semi-fuzz, semi-distortion circuit with an optional high-low drive with a screaming resonance to add some flavor. The fold side is a series of crossfader circuits with some gain, a Buchla style wavefolder, and the ability to mix in your press signal or an optional sub-generator using this switch here, engaging the sub, which is a pulse wave, 1 octave down from your base signal. But you could change it to be 2 octaves down from that signal using this jumper on the back. But for this video, I'm going to keep it on 1. And then after all that, the fold is run through an output VCA to kind of tame it and tone things down a bit. The module has 2 audio inputs to use the press and fold portions of the module as individual effects, or you can mix the signals together for more harmonic goodness. In this video, we'll do a full walkthrough of all the functions of the module, the knobs, switches, inputs, and outputs, followed by some more in-depth knob twiddling using various input sources to get a more rounded view of all the destruction dirty laundry can cause. You can jump to any section of the video using the timecodes now. And let's get started with the press side. The best way to show all the different parameters and functions of dirty laundry is to not only hear it, but to see it. And to do that, I'm going to start with a simple waveform, a sine wave. Now let's patch it into dirty laundry. First, I'm going to plug out from the press output so we could hear the press side, and right away we see that's not a sine wave. Now the interesting thing, when I turn down the sine input volume, is the sound fades out upwards to its max voltage. So it kind of attenuates downward, and right now I have the drive off, so all we're hearing is the press. I'm going to turn the press knob up here, and we'll see that it amplifies the signal and then kind of folds it on itself as a pseudo wavefolder that starts at that high voltage. And it does the same thing if I turn my input volume down. So we could see that basically the press is an attenuator into this press signal that just never hits 0. So it's similar to this gain knob here, which we'll see in a little bit, except this doesn't just gain it, it runs it through that press circuit. Now let's look at it running through the drive, which we turn on with this switch here. So we could see already the drive kind of pulsarized our wave, and also turning the press down, it's inverting our signal, where it's not really, but it kind of is, where instead of clipping, it pushes the wave back down on itself in the other direction. So we're seeing that bounce back into the other direction, and we could see that better with this, with the drive off, that it's bouncing back. We could see how it maxes out at those center points, giving us something similar to this. But we get that nice pulse wave, so it pulsarizes our signal, similar to Dreadbox Utopia. I'm turning the drive up. I'll turn the press up more. And we could see that the drive kind of offsets our signal here, and it does more when we have the frequency up. It kind of, I think it turns our frequency off when it's all the way counterclockwise, because it really kicks in. And we can see it's not offsetting our wave as much, but it's running it through that drive circuit. And the drive circuit is described as 2 op amps fighting each other. Now we've been listening to the low res frequency. Now let's switch it to the high. we can see how it adds a ton of high harmonics until the signal is almost inaudible. But at these lower levels, it works better, and it works better with higher notes, because we could hear its bass frequency coming through a bit more with these higher drive levels. So that is the entire press circuit here, but we also have press CV input with attenuator here to control our press knob, and it offsets it from that position. We have a drive CV input, which controls our drive, and then we have the res frequency, which controls our res frequency. Basically, the only thing we don't have control over via CV are the switches. So now let's switch over to the fold section. To best understand the fold section, I think it's just most important to understand the signal path. To start, we have the in1, in2 knob here, which is a crossfader circuit between our input 1, this input, and input 2, this input. So we can kind of use it as a mixer right in the middle here, or pick and choose which we run through the fold circuit. And also note that the press output normals to input 2. So right now, when unpatched, input 2 is our pressed signal being fed into the fold. Now this crossfader has this initial gain knob, which goes all the way to 0. And it can drive it a bit. So we can see that we are driving it quite a bit with all those harmonics there. Right now, we'll listen to input 1 to get that clean signal. We see it's already starting to fold our wave when we add the gain, even though our fold is all the way down. And this brings us next to our fold knob, which is the Buchla Wavefolder. Folded. This is just with a simple sine wave. And then we feed it in with our pressed signal. You can see it gets real crazy. And this brings us to our PS fold crossfader. This is a crossfader circuit when all the way clockwise is our fold side, and when all the way counterclockwise, it is just our press signal. So we have a chance to mix our press signal into the fold and then crossfade and mix it back with that initial press signal here, which is really nice for toning things down or making things nice and gnarly. You'll notice the S in PS is for the press sub switch here, which right now is in the press position. If I turn it to the sub position, we get just a nice sub coming from our input signal. You'll see turning these knobs here doesn't do anything because it is our raw signal here that is turning into our sub. So we can mix that with our fold signal. We cannot mix it with our press. The only way to really mix it with our press is to turn our press all the way up and turn our fold all the way down. And we can kind of get close, but it's not quite the same. But we get nice blends of our sub here, which really balances out those high tones that we get in the harmonics of the fold. Versus something like this. And something like that's a lot nicer. And note that we can fold it a little bit extra when this fold CV input here is left unpatched. It works as a little boost to our fold knob here. So just a note, if you want a little fine tune, use that knob. And then also note, we have 2 additional CV inputs that do not have attenuators, in1, in2, and fold PS. These control these 2 crossfaders. In1, in2 obviously controls in1, in2, and fold PS is this PS fold. I don't know why they're in opposite positions here. And all that brings us to the last part of the signal flow, which is our VCA, which when left unpatched acts as our end-of-chain volume knob. And if we patch an envelope into here, it acts as an attenuator for our envelope signal, which is why we're not hearing anything right now. I turn it up, and we get a nice built-in VCA. It would have been really awesome if the VCA was a low-pass gate instead, or if it had an extra switch, an extra mode for that. Maybe that could be Dirty Laundry 2.0. I think that would really, really complement the Wavefolder, though the VCA works great. And that is all the knobs, switches, ins and outs of Dirty Laundry. Now let's hear what Dirty Laundry sounds like when we feed it all sorts of different things. Like adding CV to all these lonely CV inputs here. First, we're going to start with this sequence here. And I have just the sine wave. I'm going to put this in input 1, and now I'm going to take a more complex wave. It's like kind of two flipped sine wave halves. And I'm going to put this into input 2. I'll take the fold output here, plug it in here. So now we have a mix of both signals here. So first, I'm taking the trigger from the sequencer, running it through carve on channel 1 just off screen there for our envelope. And now we want to modulate this with more CV. So we'll put a bipolar LFO from channel 2 of carve into the res frequency with the attenuator all the way up. Or what if we put this into the fold? Or if we put this LFO back on the resonance here and just mult our envelope and put that into the fold. Or if we put the envelope into the fold PS. So we get a cross folder that is shooting it to the fold with the envelope. And it's even cooler with the sub. Let's go back to the press. Now let's throw this into the in 1 and 2. Throw it in the drive. You get a nice clicky, gritty sound to it here. Or throw this in the press. We get a nice clicking, pulsing sidechain compression sound. And what if we audio rate modulate with our press output here to itself? Let's try it with the frequency. It kind of brightens it up a little bit. And let's try with the drive. You get a lot more of that cool feedback reaction with the drive because we're feeding it back on itself. Let's try with the press. Get a little more glitchy sounds. Now let's try it over with the fold side. And I'll throw it in the fold. I'll tone it down a little bit and it'll probably work better. Let's say we mult this. And put that in the drive because that was doing some cool effects. go one step further and also audio modulate our Fold PS crossfader. And that brightens it up a bit more. And let's throw it in 1 and 2. It's not going to do quite as much, but it does seem to smooth out the tone a little bit. I like doing this with the sub. Let's try one more thing. I'm going to unplug all of this, and I'm going to mult our fold output and feed that back. And let's see what that does on our drive. And we get that nice Wavefolder effect applied to our drive. Rest frequency. Try it on the press. And let's put in the Fold PS. Or into 1-2. It kind of gives it a little bit more metallic sound. Let's throw in the Fold. So again, we get that kind of glitchy, buzzy, brighter sound when we feedback patch. And that is CV patching and feedback patching on Dirty Laundry. Now let's hear how Dirty Laundry can press and fold a voice. Here's a looping cycle I have in beads that I just froze. And I have it mapping volt per octave. So I'm going to give it this sequence to make it a little bit more interesting. All right, let's hear how this sounds through the press. So right now, I have everything down and I have the drive off. And I'm going to just turn up the press. So it's giving it a nice overdrive distortion at these levels. But you get a nice little drive to it with the low press. Now let's hear how it sounds with the drive on. Already, it's going crazy. Let's turn the press down. Alrighty, this is sounding great if you want like a metal riff. We're getting a bit of like a megaphone sort of effect at some of these levels. Now a nice high-pass filter effect. The press still adds nice distortion. Now let's hear it with the high. See, at the higher levels with the frequency, it doesn't do too much. But these lower levels, you get some nice sweet spots. And again, at these higher levels, the frequency gets too high to where we just don't hear what's going on. Again, hit those sweet spot. So you could use it as a nice filtering volume knob. Now let's look at it through the fold. So right now I'm going to put it on in 1, so it's pulling straight from the input and not going through the press at all, and we're just hearing the fold. I'm going to turn the gain up. And already we could get it a lot louder with that gain knob. And I have this mix on fully fold as well. Now let's turn up the fold. We can hear it destroys it very quickly. Now I'm just going to slowly turn the fold all the way up. So the fold really makes it unrecognizable at these higher levels, but it gives you that heavy wave-folded flavor. Now let's mix it with the press. Or the sub. We just got a heavy drum beat going here. You can hear the voice coming back in here now. Now let's hear it mixed. We can actually mix with the press twice with that top crossfader and then the bottom PS fold. Now let's feed it a more interesting sequence from beads here and just jam for a little bit. And that is pressing and folding the voice through Dirty Laundry. Now let's throw another thing through Dirty Laundry, some slap bass. I have a bass riff coming from Squid Sample here, and I'm going to be putting that through Dirty Laundry, but first, let's hear how the bass riff sounds on its own. There it is, a nice bass riff with the slaps, pops, and dead notes to give it nice changing sound that we can hear in Dirty Laundry. And also, if anyone's interested, I could go over this Squid Sample bank in another video. So let's get on with it. I'm going to plug into the fold output here because we can get the press output by just turning this knob fully counterclockwise with it set at press. I'm going to patch this into input 1, and actually let's patch the output here so we can see it. So already we're getting some noise, which is why there's the built-in VCA here. But it's interesting that we're getting it at this mid-level and not at full, which is very interesting and nice to know. And now let's hear the bass riff. Start with it all down, and I'll turn the drive off. So already we have a drop off in volume, and we have kind of a little buzzy sound. So it's really crunching it up and gating it. But we were getting a little bit more low end in volume with the drive on. A lot more volume, actually. And the sound just tends to sound better at these lower drive levels. But now, let's try with the high. So at these higher drive levels with the high setting, the sound just tends to disappear. But at the lower levels, we could get a lot out of it. So we get it nice and crunchy here. And then on the fold side, we could kind of bring that low end back in. And now let's listen to the fold side. So I'm going to turn the gain up. So here's our raw signal. Again, unfolded. And now I'm going to fold it. We get that really nice, crunchy, wave-folded sound, which I love with bass and guitar. I wish there were Wavefolder guitar pedals. But for the sake of this, let's calm it down with the VCA. And for the VCA here, I'm kind of treating it like the gated drums I did in the Kaliba video. Bing! Where I have my initial bass signal going into ears by mutable music things, and then I have the gate output going into carve right here, and it is being slewed a little bit to give it a little bit of release with the gate, otherwise we get really choppy, which is another cool effect. But I wanted to sound more like nice, distorted, wave-folded bass. Let's hear how the press signal sounds through there. Very grungy. Now let's add some drums to it. And what happens if I also throw that VCA gate signal into our fold press crossfader? And it's not fully counterclockwise. Kind of the West Coast meets East Coast thing with the acid-inspired patching. I like that release down actually. And last, let's look at the sub. Get some video game sounds. Let's patch this envelope back in. And that is bass through Dirty Laundry. Now we're going to look at one more instrument through Dirty Laundry, guitar. I'm only showing this in conjunction with the bass because it makes great guitar distortion effects for certain playing styles. Quickly, here are snippets of the guitar riffs clean. Now let's play with them through Dirty Laundry. Now I'm not going to do a full walkthrough here with the guitar since we did that with the bass and the vocals and the synth, so I'm just going to show some snippets here of the good bits. Now you'll notice it does do some interesting gating here on the press side. and that is Dirty Laundry as a guitar distortion wavefolder. And that is Dirty Laundry. Happy twiddling!